We're going to look at the light tile type next. So let's go to our plus button here and go to your default tile set. And if you scroll down, click on the light option. Inside the light, we have direct, radial, and shadow. We're going to put in all three of them, and then we'll just walk our way through each one. All right. The first one, direct, you'll have an image. This image is going to be what actually gets displayed inside the scene as part of the lighting system. You'll have the thumbnail, which is just going to be the icon that gets shown. All right, so we'll say select folder here. And once we have it in, we'll go ahead and go back up to the plus. We'll go back to our light, choose radial, same thing. The light radial is circular. If you can see that, it should be capturing it where you can see the kind of a white gradient going out in a circle. That one is going to be the radial light. The radial light is also going to be similar to, we'll go back to here to add the last one, the shadow light. Shadow is going to use the same one in terms of the fall off for it. And it'll be that one. Alright, so we have three lights for the scene. Let's click on the first one here, and in the tile type, scroll down to the light option. So we'll say light. We'll go ahead and set this one up to start with, and then after that, we'll set up the other one. So we'll say light, and this one is actually directional. So we'll say directional, and we'll say direction-based light. Alright, general, the visible, we want to say it's going to be visible in-game. This will be an icon image, so it's going to disappear anyways, but the visible is actually for the actual light. So we'll say yes for this. Receive light, no, because we don't care about the light itself being hit. If you had like a light bulb image and the collider was based around it, then you may want to have it so that other objects could shine onto it. The image offset value for it, we'll actually just leave this one, we'll leave it at 0, but if you want to, as a for instance, if I set it behind the player, then the player can move in front of the light and not be affected visually. If I set it in front, then anything that's in behind this will get lit. So your offset is going to be telling whether or not an object is seen with it or not with it. If there was an animation applied, you might have a flickering animation, you might have like light particles coming in from it from a fog or something. You can animate it that way and have it show. We'll choose our thumbnail here. And the collider, we'll go ahead and turn the collider off for the light. The color and the filter is based on this light right here, the icon image, not the actual image. So we're going to scroll down here. Now, the light itself can be part of the animation. So if you had an enter, exit, and all those, you could have it so that when you enter, the light has a certain lighting effect. Maybe you're inside a room and you want it to just kind of glow a little differently than when the player exits the spot. Then you can set it up through the tile animation part. The trigger setting as well is that if you actually want it to be triggered to use the animations, then you can enable it from here. Alright, we're going to focus though just on the main core parts of the light, the color, the type, and the settings. So each one is going to have a different setup here. So I'm just going to go ahead and at this point, we'll just go ahead and right click on this and say copy properties. I'm going to left click to select the next one and say paste properties. And then left click, right click, paste properties. Alright, so now we have all three set up the same. I'm going to go back to my directional one though. We'll scroll back down to it. So 0 is radial, which means we want to go to 1 value is kind of, it's in the shadow. And then the last one would be 2 for shadow. So we're doing directional on this one. We're saying the ray detail. Ray detail is how many rays, lines are casted out to find things inside the scene. Right now we're saying it's going to be 5. The radius, the scene, in terms of the direction, you have a radial circle. You can go all the way around to 300. And that's going to say how much is actually being put inside of it to be checking for stuff. We're going to say it's about 10 or so. Alright, and then when it comes to the cone start and the angle, this one I would say usually it's just better to be in terms of visual. You want to be in Build-A-Game so you can actually choose where you want the cone angle to start. 0 I think starts up and then it goes around, and the cone angle itself can be rotated around as well. the beam size and beam range. So these are going to be the two that actually play a part of the direction. The size for this one is how big, but then the range is how far. Right now it's only going down to 10, which will be fine for the default value when a player drops it in. You don't want it to cover the entire scene, but you do want it to be large enough they see it. Alright, and then the option for trigger toggles light, this just simply means that if you want to enable, if this is enabled and you're using the triggering system, the trigger settings up there, then you can actually have this one to say yes and no for it to turn on, turn off, like a light switch. Alright, then our last two settings right here. We have our shader type, additive, alpha, multiply, and then vertex lit. If you want it to affect the objects in the behind it, then you want to say additive, they're going to be a little bit brighter. If you want to say alpha blend, it'll be just about the same level as whatever color you have. And then the multiply will be a darker effect. Alright, so light types, let me close these here. And then we also have color. Color will just say that, for instance, if I wanted this to be yellow, and maybe we want it to be a little bit more on the, we'll say about 50% opaque for it. Alright, so that'll be the light color for the directional light blended with the image that we had on it. Alright, and then the image, let's make sure that it actually gets loaded. So on the tile animations, be sure that at start, we do our light direct, and on loop, we do the direct. This will make sure this is going to be the image applied to it. Alright, so then the last two, we'll just run through these real quick. So we already have all the other stuff set up, so we'll just do the light radial right here. Alright, and if we go down to the bottom here, we'll say our light color type and settings. And the type is radial, which is fine. Detail, default, radius size. Let's say we want to, the radius, let's say we want to take it out to 20, so 2 tiles out in terms of distance. Alright, beam size is for directional, so we don't need that one. The trigger toggle is fine to be on. Light type, we'll say additive. And then again, let's go ahead and do a yellow tone for it. We'll set it down across there. And then the last one is shadow. Shadow is actually the opposite direction. So again, it's not the bright spot hitting it, it's actually the lighter spot. It's the after part of where the shadow areas are going to be occurring based on the raycast for it. So for the light settings, we'll say it's going to be in shadow. Ray detail, distance, we're actually going to set the distance up a little bit further. We'll say like 20 to 30. That way it can catch outside on the other end of a area in case you have like a light. If you do the light and the shadow in the same spot, if you have this radius set further, then it'll be kind of just complementary to the light itself. Alright, and then we have the light type right there. Again, additive, no, we probably want multiply, we want it to be a little darker. You could also probably use the alpha blended as well. Alright, and then we'll do a grayish tone. And still make it kind of a little bit of a light alpha on it for it. So there we go. So it's going to be setting up 3 different lights. You got directional, you have radial, and you have the shadow.